All right, good afternoon to a small audience, but that's awesome. Exactly. My name is Scott Dart, and I am presenting what to do with all that data. I don't think I recognize any of you from being in my session 2 years ago, right? Cool. So you're going to get the 10-minute summary of the previous presentation, and then we build on that. I am not a believer in death by PowerPoint. I do have some slides up here with some pertinent information on it to share with you. And if any of that is of interest, this slide and the very last slide does have the address from which you can download all of the slides from. And so, you know, you can scribble notes if you'd like. You can also download the PowerPoint presentation. Then the next part of the program, after we finish with the slides, is we're going to take some questions, and especially, this is what's great about a small audience, is if you have any questions specific to your organization or ministry, let's talk about it, because let's dive into it. Probably someone else in the room is thinking the same question that you're going to ask, so go do them a favor and ask and share, and let's make this a real interactive session here. So just a little bit about me first. I am from the tribe of Christians they call Lutheran. I've been one all of my life. I am mostly a product of Lutheran education, except for junior high school. Don't ask me about that. Love training and teaching. It's in my blood. My mom was a teacher. My grandfather was a pastor. And we have lots of other teachers and pastors in the family too. I always knew all my life I was going to be a Lutheran pastor someday. And I went to Concordia, Nebraska and started pre-seminary. And while there, I ran out of money. And so I quickly became an internet service provider instead. Total different direction. But God, in His infinite wisdom and mercy, spared some poor congregation having me as their pastor. So it's all good. Then when internet service providers, when the cable companies and the phone companies figured out how to sell internet, that was kind of the end of the independent internet service provider. And so we kind of morphed into a web application development studio. And did that for a few more years, sold that business, and then I became a project manager. We made mobile games, mobile slot games actually, for one of my employers did. And we would take the games that you find in a casino and we'd put them on your mobile phone. And I just have to say, this is fascinating. People would give us real money so that we could give them fake money to play our games. And even if you won, you still lost because you couldn't cash in the fake money for real money. And my thought was, why not just take your money to a casino and you might actually win something? It's like it's completely gone once you've paid us. Well, 3% of our customers would pay us, and they would pay us enough that we could keep the thing going. It was fascinating. But then I went to work for a company you may have heard of. It's called IBM, and I was a project manager for them, and also I started studying data science. And data science got me really interested in how can we use this for the kingdom of God also. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So this is a little bit about the church that I belong to in Columbia, Missouri. It's Campus Lutheran Church. Yes, we do have a college ministry. It's located adjacent to both the University of Missouri and Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri. We have 2 Sunday services. One's traditional and one's what we call blended. We try to be contemporary, but we're not allowed to call it that because it doesn't do contemporary worship justice, so we call it blended. We have a college-aged student ministry affiliated with Lutheran Student Fellowship. We call it The Gathering. We have a middle and high school youth ministry. We have a program called Grace Road, which ministers to kids from birth through grade 5. And you can see they just progress on up through all of those there. We have about 175 in worship each week. And we just completed a building project. And I'd like to note that we are not presenting on best practices on how to build a building, because we had everything go wrong that could possibly go wrong. Started out with a $1.4 million project. We had issues with the architect. We had to do asbestos mitigation. We had a sloped parking lot that wasn't functional. We had no technology built into the building at all. This was before I arrived on the scene, nobody planned for that. So by the time it was all said and done, it ended up costing $3.3 million. By the grace of God, we made it work, and we hope to have it paid off in about 6 or 7 years. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about this afternoon, the agenda for our meeting. What data does the church have access to? That's one of the things we're going to be interested in talking about. How do companies use data, and therefore how do churches and other organizations and ministries use data? What are the best practices, see what I did there, for using data in the church? How to discern what the data is telling us? Communicating the message, and then we'll move to your questions, comments, concerns, real-world examples, thoughts. So, what exactly is data? Well, if this guy comes to mind, you might not be wrong, but we might need to reframe the context for this presentation. For our purposes today, data is information that provides a basis for decision making. That is our definition of data. Some of the things we may want to do with data, especially in the church, are look at reasons behind our successes and failures. We may want to understand our members or the group of people that we're trying to reach. We may want to plan for the future. We may want to meaningfully experiment. And we may want to improve on the performance that we have right now. Now, here's something really interesting. There's only 5 questions that data can answer. That's it, only 5. The first is this A or is this B? And any question where we're examining either or, and we're trying to separate information into different buckets, is A or B. Now that can extrapolate it. There could be a C, yep, there could be a Q, there could be a Z, depending on the situation. But what bucket does this data fit into? That's the first question. Is this A or B? Second one is my favorite one. Is this weird? That's one of the questions that data answers. So sometimes we call the weird data points, we call them outliers. Lots of times we take the one-off weird data and we set it aside because it skews the results that we're trying to get. And we can tell that, you're looking at a graph of data and all of a sudden there's one data point that's either way up here or way down there and everybody else is near the middle. And we'll call those outliers and we'll say, is that weird? Yeah, that's weird. So now there are some times where we may want to keep those outliers and look at those outliers and include them in our data set. But we want to identify what's the weird data. Is this weird? So then the most common question that we ask with data is how much or sometimes how many. Data will tell us that. That's the quantifier. We had this many people at this event, or we collected this many dollars at our last fundraiser. The fourth question is, how is this organized? When we can't see an answer to one of the questions above, we may have to better organize the data in order to get the answers we're looking for. So sometimes the data can be answering a question, how is this data organized for us? The fifth one is the Holy Grail. The fifth one is, what should I do now? And that is really why data science is a thing. Because we want to know, according to the data, what should we do now? That's where we're trying to get to, and that's the Holy Grail. This is what we ultimately want to know to help make our decision. But we may need to ask a combination of those other questions before we can get to what should I do now. I need to make my notes just a little bit larger because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. There we go. So let's take a look at how data gets used by a consulting client of mine. How many of you have been to the Walt Disney World complex in Orlando? Great. Or any Disney property? Awesome. Let's imagine that you've booked a family vacation at Walt Disney World. So you've got a family of 3. You got dad, mom, and little 5-year-old Susie. You have saved your pennies and you've bought this amazing package at Walt Disney World that includes tickets to the theme parks and accommodations at Disney's Contemporary Resort Hotel. This is a really cool hotel. If you haven't been there, the monorail goes right through it, and when you stay there, you can either take the monorail to the Magic Kingdom or Epcot. You can walk over to the Magic Kingdom if you want. You can get a bus to take you anywhere else at Walt Disney World. And by the way, none of that is an accident. There's a lot of data that helps decide where the transportation can take you from the Contemporary Hotel. But let's get back to our story. So you're going to be a guest at Disney's Contemporary Resort for the next few days. So you go inside and you go to the front desk and you meet Spencer. Spencer gives you these cool bracelets to wear called magic bands. Now magic bands do all kinds of things at Walt Disney World. They're the key to your hotel room. They're your admission ticket. They're your charge card. So you can go in and buy something and just go boop, and it gets billed to your room. No worries, it's magic money, right? And they also get you, they're the identification that you use if you decide to go through the lightning lane. You used to know that as the fast pass, and it used to be free, and now you get to pay for it. You get to pay for quicker access to the rides, but still you identify yourself with your magic band, and that tells them to let you through and to the front of the line. Spencer also lets you know here that you can upgrade to a more customized magic band that has your favorite Disney character or your favorite Disney movie scene on it, or Pixar, and it's just an additional $29.95. And this makes me laugh because Disney wants you to pay for a magic band. And in reality, they should be paying you to wear that magic band. And the reason for that is it's an amazing device. It has an RFID chip in it, and it lets the computers all over the Disney property uniquely identify you. And by using it, you're giving Disney permission to use your data. Now, at this point in the presentation, somebody probably says, whoa, wait a second. That's not fair. They can't do that. They can't go around watching everything I do. That's an invasion of privacy. Yep. It is. But you agreed to do that when you took the magic band. You said, you can use my information. It's not necessarily evil or bad. We trust some parties with our data, and other parties we don't. That's really important, and we're going to come back to that a little bit later because, well, it's just really important. But let's get back to magic bands for right now. Susie does not care about data privacy, not one bit. She is ready to enjoy her magical vacation, and she can't wait to use her magic band. And you know what? Right now, her parents don't care about data privacy either. They trust the Walt Disney Company with the data. They know that Disney will benefit from the data, but they also trust that they will benefit from sharing their data with Disney. So let's pretend that we are guest experience managers at Walt Disney World for a minute. Let's look at this picture. What can you tell me about Susie, just from looking at the picture?
She likes the movie Frozen.
She loves the movie Frozen. She doesn't just like it, she loves it. What else do we know about her? How much does she love it? She's wearing it. She's got a plush Anna doll there. So probably her favorite character from Frozen is... Anything else that you guys can pick out from this picture? Yeah, well, she's 5. We know that from the reservation, well, from the data we already have. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of this. She used her magic band to go into Epcot, and that's the park where the Frozen Ever After attraction is located. She went to the Norway Pavilion and used the lightning lane for Frozen Ever After twice. Dad bought Susie the Princess Anna dress online to announce the vacation to the family. And Susie purchased a plush Anna with her very own magic band when she exited the ride through the gift shop in the Norway Pavilion. Okay, so by now, you're probably thinking, wow, that's really cool. Or, oh my gosh, that's creepy. Well, neither one of those reactions is wrong. It is cool when there's a trust between the organization, Disney in this case, and the customer, Susie's family. It can also be creepy, though, if we don't know what to expect when we're asked to trust someone with our data. So companies take great pains to craft privacy policies and data usage policies. These policies define the relationship you have with them and how they'll access and use your data. When you're gathering data at your organization, it's important to develop policies that define the relationship you have with the people whose data you're capturing. Be that your members, your prospective members, donors, alumni who have moved on. But you want to be able to tell them how you're going to access and use their data. That's the difference between cool and creepy, is transparency. By the way, if anyone has questions or comments along the way, feel free because, like I said, I want to make this interactive. So unfortunately, most people don't read privacy policies because they typically look like this. Except they're typically pages and pages or screens and screens that look the same. We don't take the time to read them. We know we can't use whatever services are being offered unless we accept them, so we usually just go ahead and click OK. We don't know we may not understand what a clear GIF is or what a web beacon is. We may not know what passive automatic electronic collection is or how it affects us, so we just accept the terms. So it's important, whether you're a company like Disney or whether you're a church or a school or an organization like yours, you want to make sure that you follow the golden rule. Treat people and their data the way you'd want to be treated. Let people know how you're going to use their data and let them know how you're going to use it. Let them know how it's going to benefit them when you give them your data or when they give you their data. But anyway, let's get back to our story. So we have all these data points about Susie and her family now. Some of the data we got from the reservation itself, the parties for 2 adults and 1 5-year-old girl named Susie. Other data points we got are because of interactions Susie's family completed with us, like ordering the Princess Anna dress. Other things we learned from the behaviors we could observe and measure while on their vacation, visiting Epcot, going on Frozen Ever After twice, and purchasing the Princess Anna plush doll. So all of these data points we look at, we can surmise that she likes Frozen. Particularly, she's a fan of Princess Anna from Frozen. Okay, great. Now what does the Walt Disney Company do with that data? So I worked on a project for over a decade to help them do stuff like this. First, Frozen and Princess Anna are identified as focus points. An algorithm, which is just another word for a computer program, it's designed to look for patterns in guest behavior. It identifies multiple behaviors, and then from the data points the algorithm sees, it determines that Frozen and Princess Anna are commonalities in Susie's profile. And one of the data points that the algorithm doesn't see yet is that there's no reservation booked for the Frozen-themed character dining experience over in Epcot's Norway Pavilion. So, back at the hotel room, a housekeeper strategically places a letter from Anna to Susie in the hotel room. It says something to the effect of, Hi, Susie. I love that you've come to visit me. You know, I'd like to invite you and your parents to come to breakfast or lunch with me before you have to go back home. Your parents can call this number to book the experience, and it's just $69.95 a person. Can't wait to see you. It'll be a special day. I hope it's full of laughter and smiles. See you soon, my friend. Love, Anna. So Disney has mined data about Susie's family. They've decided with their algorithm that Susie should get a letter from Anna about the frozen character dining experience. So what do you think will happen when Susie gets the letter? The first words out of her mouth are going to be, Daddy, can we please go? And just like that, Disney increased the revenue they got from Susie's family by another $210. Again, what we're trying to do with data, for Disney, we're trying to identify additional ways to enhance the guest experience. We get a higher guest satisfaction rate, and the more likelihood that they will return again next year or maybe the following year. It's more revenue per person. That's good for Disney. So it's good for both the customer and the business. But the important thing to know is this works because guests trust Disney with their data. So what do we learn here? How do we take Disney-like approaches to gathering data about our people and programs and our priorities so that we can use the data to make better informed decisions? We can't give everyone a baptism band with an RFID chip in it. I wish we could, but we can't. But there are ways that we can collect data to better educate us all. But before we talk about that, we have to back up to the first step of the process. Step one is deciding what do we want to learn from the data. That seems like a no-brainer, but a lot of people, a lot of organizations go off and we're going to implement data-driven decisions, but we don't know what we want to ask of the data. My church, here are actual questions that we wanted to learn from data. Should we use postcards and direct mail, or should we use social media and email to do the marketing campaign for VBS? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important are short-term mission trips to the congregation? Should we do text to give? How many of our bulletins don't make it outside of the church? How many of them wind up in the recycle bin right after the service? And this is a good one. Who should be allowed to use the new kitchen? That's a very Lutheran question, isn't it? Is our annual Meet Me at the Manger event effective for outreach? And then this is another one. We just had our annual Lutheran Student Fellowship retreat, and one of our members actually asked, how come the college students have to use the entire property for their retreat? But that was a question we wanted to ask. So, what data do we need to answer these questions? You can see we have a methodology or a question that we want to ask of the participants for each of these. So in the first case, we simply asked the VBS participants, how'd you hear about us? On a survey, we asked the congregation to rank programs and services, and we included short-term mission trips on the list. Now this is interesting. We didn't say, how important do you think short-term missions is? We asked them to relatively rank it with a whole bunch of other programs and services that we have. And so if they ranked it really high, we know that it's important. If they ranked it low or not at all, we know the short-term mission trips aren't important to them. Now again, I'm not advocating or disparaging short-term mission trips. We're just looking for data here. We're just looking for what does the congregation think. So we also wanted to ask people, would you be willing to text to give online? Or would you be willing to go to a website and make your contributions that way? So how fast is the college-aged young adult ministry growing? We won't read all of them. We'll move on here. So step 3, this is crucial. Do we already have the data, or can we collect it? There are some things that you're just not going to get, that people aren't going to tell you. How many pairs of shoes are in your closet? Now, I don't know why we'd need that data point, but there are some things that you won't be able to get. You want to ask yourself, either do we already have the data we're looking for to answer this question, or is it possible to collect it? So again, those same examples, on the VBS registration, we just asked, how did you hear about us? That's how we collected it. We actually already did that. We had been doing that for years. How did you hear about us? So we already had that data. So like I said, on the next congregational survey, we asked for the prioritization, and you can see the other things listed there too. We won't read them all word for word, but I do want to pick out the one that's second from the bottom. We have this event called Meet Me at the Manger, where our members set up manger nativity scenes throughout the church. Last year, I think we had 350 of them, and we invite the community to come in and look at it. We never got any data. This is the 5th year we've done it. We never got any data on who was coming until this year. And I finally put my foot down. I said, okay, you don't want to get people to register or give us any information. At least somebody's going to stand at the door with a little clicker and click it once every time somebody comes in. So if nothing else, we will know how many people showed up. Well, then all of a sudden, one of the ladies that was organizing it, she put out a guest register. And I thought, oh, thank you, because now anybody who wants to share their information with us, we can get their name and their email address. And why? Again, they need a compelling reason. Most of these people that come to this are not connected with our church in any way, shape, or form yet. So what do we tell them? We're like, well, we want to tell you about this event again next year because we don't want you to miss out on it. And Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook says, in one of the interviews I saw with him, he said, I couldn't believe how much information people would give me just because I asked for it. Well, that's true. And people, especially if you build up that trust relationship, people will be more than happy to give you data to help you serve them. So next year, we're going to issue free tickets over the web. And you can go online and you can order a free ticket, and that means we will have 100% of the participants who come to see it will have their name and email, because we're going to email you your free ticket. So what does data look like? Data, if your church still does this, data might be the friendship register that gets signed on Sunday morning. We don't do that anymore at Campus Lutheran, but we used to. Maybe there's an information or contact card. Again, communion registration if you still do that. And I got a funny story here. My sainted mother was really worried about filling out the communion card. And she was a paraplegic, and she just couldn't get the card filled out before she went up to communion. And I said, Mom, don't worry about it. All we do is supplement the attendance records with this. We don't do anything else with the communion records. It's no big deal if you don't get it filled out, because you already signed the register. Okay, so Mom goes and tells the chair of the LWML circle that, did you know they don't do anything with the communion cards? And there was an uproar because, some of those LWML ladies, they're from the old school of, you register for communion, you announce yourself at communion. So anyway, that's why I included that. I never told my mother another operational secret about church again. But again, tickets to the annual, you fill in the blank, gala, auction, show, festival, dinner, drama night, whatever, talent show, numbers on a clicker, badge here, badge registration information. Giving records, prayer requests, and this is my favorite one at the bottom, verbally transmitted information. Casual conversation where somebody may say something that is relevant to capturing data, and you can note that. And if you've got a church management system, put that information in there so that the rest of the staff can see it. And eventually we may start identifying more trends that will help us with our programming. So if you hear something, write it down. So what does data look like? The simple answer is, anytime you have contact with someone, it's the potential to gather data. Now, Scott here believes that data is a gift from the Holy Spirit. It's a tool to assist us in deciding how we're going to carry out the Great Commission in our organization. Data is not evil. Collecting data is not evil. Remember, what's evil is being deceptive about data collection practices and what you're doing with the data. Transparency about what data you're going to collect and what you're going to use it for, it removes all of the evil associated with the process. One more story about Campus Lutheran Church. So John, who is on our church council also and leads a small group, we wanted to start collecting attendance data on small groups. And so John wrote me a very concerned email, and it said, Scott, this sounds a lot more like law than gospel if you're going to be, collecting attendance records. I sat down with him and I explained, John, I don't care if John comes to small groups or not. What I care about is how many men come to small group, how many married men come to small group, how many married men over 60 come to small group, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care about whether John comes. Well, I do, but from a data collection standpoint, I don't. I care about all of the demographic groups that John belongs to, because I want to know how well are we doing with small groups in all of these different demographics. And the way I'm going to tell is I'm going to measure the participation. John said, oh, yeah, okay, I can get behind that. I'll send you our attendance list. So again, establishing that trust relationship, being transparent about what are we going to do with the data. And you'll find that people are willing to participate. So what can data measure? Let's think back to our first 4 questions that we looked at. Is this A or B? Or is it C? Or is it Q? Or is it Z? Is this weird? How much or how many? How is this organized? And if we don't have a clear picture on that, we may have to go back and ask some more of these of our data in these 4 questions. But here are some examples. Data can measure attendance at worship. It can measure engagement. It can measure format. For example, how many people come to blended and how many people come to traditional. What times are people attending worship? And again, we don't know what the factors are necessarily that are bringing people to a particular service, but we can capture the data and we can analyze it, which we'll talk about later in the presentation, and then we can extrapolate some things from it. But at this point in time, we can't make any determinations from this. We're just trying to find out who comes to what service. When we ask for priorities, we talked about the short-term mission trip and where is that on the priority list? Because we want to measure, is it time for us to switch focus to something else? Is it time to try something new? Or can we confirm that we're doing something right and we need to expound on it? What do we do now? Remember, that's the holy grail question for the data. What do I do now? So also data measures programming. What's working well? What isn't working? What should we be doing that we aren't? These are all questions that can go on congregational surveys. Next 2 I love. What's the one thing we're doing that we should stop immediately? And what's the one thing we're doing that we should never stop doing? That gives us a gauge of what is the highest ranking good thing and bad thing that is perceived. And then I left a blank there. What's the one thing blank? Open-ended questions. But there's a problem with open-ended questions. Which of the 4 questions do they answer? They're open-ended questions. It answers question number 4. How is the data organized? How is this organized? Open-ended questions are a lot more work for the data gatherers, but the reward is greater too. Data gatherers must try to organize the open-ended answers into bundles to identify trends. Or is this A or B or C or D? And when someone says, what's the biggest thing going on at church? I said, well, we use Tabasco at our potlucks, and we should really be using Texas Pete's instead. I kid you not, that was an actual response. And that's when we know we're asking the question, is this weird?
I wish you had revealed that to everyone who said that.
What's that?
I wish you had revealed to everyone that I said.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then we have 2 responses then. So open-ended questions help you understand, is this A or B, is this weird, or how is this organized? When you're not sure, you know the questions you should be asking. Sorry, my notes, like I said, I can't read my notes very well. But open-ended questions should not be used to drive what should I do now. That's the important takeaway. They can answer the other 4 questions. Open-ended questions are terrible at telling us what should we do now. So, any Monty Python fans here? There's a still picture there. I don't know if you know. Hello, can we have your liver? Is the original line, but he's saying, "Hello, can we have your data?" The best way to have to get data is to have the person providing the data give it directly to you in electronic form, or checking in on an app or at a kiosk or something like that. Why? Anybody want to take a guess why that's the best way? If you are writing it down or they're writing it down and then it has to get transcribed by somebody else, there's a possibility for error. Now, there's still a possibility for error. They might have fat fingers, or they might just go, oh, let's check D no matter what it says. But at least they're providing the information directly, and so you have a better chance of having accurate data. So if you can't do that, make the collection as simple as possible. Test methods on somebody not involved in the process. Believe it or not, that's a great eye-opener, because my mom was always my test. If my mother could do it, then it was easy enough for everybody. So unless you're counting people that come in the door or collecting other data that doesn't require asking anybody anything, make sure you ask for the data. Don't be afraid to tell them why you're using it. It's to make sure we make an informed decision that's not coupled to our own preconceived notions. Registrations on your website. Tickets through Eventbrite. Does everybody know what Eventbrite is? Did you know that as a church you can use Eventbrite for free for any ticket that's free? We actually used Eventbrite to do worship registration during COVID when the what I like to call the People's Republic of Colombia told us how many people we could have in a worship service on any given Sunday. And so we would use Eventbrite to register for that. Can't say enough good things about Eventbrite. And also, if you're selling tickets to a fundraiser, Eventbrite charges 3%. So you still get 97 cents of every dollar of tickets you sell. So I don't work for Eventbrite. I don't get compensated by them, but I think they're an amazing platform for nonprofits and particularly churches. But then you can have drawings, you can have contests, but always collect the name and how they like to be contacted. Do they want to hear from you by phone, by voice or text, or email or snail mail? It's important to ask that. Guest books. Have them sign a guest book like they did at our manger event. But the only problem with that is that has to be transcribed. And somebody may miss a line or two, and we may miss some of the data that we want. If you're having a bake sale, write up a receipt. Keep a copy. We'll know who bought what and spent how much. We'll know what items are popular at a bake sale and maybe what aren't as popular. All kinds of data out there. If you're running an auction, write up a receipt. The purchaser has it for tax purposes and you get their data. So store your data in an algorithm or a computer-friendly way. That's another way of saying get a computer program. Notebooks, we're done with notebooks now. We're done with graph paper. We're going to welcome everybody into at least the end of the 20th century and into the 21st century. Get data. Get your data in the cloud if you can. Excel, Access, and SharePoint are all available through Microsoft 365, which is the first 10 licenses are free to any nonprofit organization. And additional licenses, if you're a larger church or organization, additional nonprofit licenses are $3 a month per user. It's amazing stuff. It includes all the collaboration tools like SharePoint that allows you to use the things called SharePoint lists. Back in my day, we called them databases. But then people didn't understand how to use them, so Microsoft renamed them lists, and they became much more popular. When you get Microsoft for Nonprofits, you also get a couple $1,000s worth of Azure services in the cloud for free. So things that businesses spend thousands of dollars on, you get for free as a nonprofit with Microsoft 365. There are non-Microsoft services available as well from competitors like Amazon and Google. I have not found a more robust set of tools than Office 365. It also includes Microsoft Teams, which you may have heard about. Teams builds on top of SharePoint and has all kinds of collaboration and meeting and data analytics features. Deb?
Yeah, there's one resource I love. You get tons for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Excel and Access mashed together into a beautiful marriage. It's called Airtable.
I have heard of Airtable. It's awesome.
Wonderful. You can even do forms on
Yep.
Airtable, embed those on your site, and collect data straight into your database.
Cool.
It's very cool. I use it a lot.
I love Airtable. We don't use it at our church because we opted to. We're all in on Microsoft at our church, but I have used Airtable and I like that. The key reason I like Office is the data platform that comes with it. And Airtable is a good one, it is. But I can start by collecting information in Excel, and then I can upgrade it to SharePoint when I want to later. Or if I want to collaborate with other people, if multiple people need to access it at the same time. And again, I know other tools do this too. But my experience is when I get downright nerdy about my data, I can spin up a SQL server on Azure for free. And then I can do a lot more analytics than you would want. The bottom line is, though, no matter what service you get an online service. There is no cloud, it's only somebody else's computer. So it's not mystical or magical or anything like that. But you're storing your information on a very redundant and well backed up system when you use the cloud. It's actually safer to store your data in the cloud, and it's better encrypted and better protected than it is if you run a file server at your organization. Campus Lutheran Church just got rid of all of their file servers 3 years ago, and we operate everything out of the Microsoft cloud now. And what's great about that is our church secretary had a question this morning. She was looking for a file, and she could ping me on Microsoft Teams, and I could say, oh, I think it's right here. And oh, sure enough, there it was. And not only did I tell her where it was, I gave her the document from out here in Phoenix, even though it's, well, I don't know where it is. It's not in Columbia either. It's in the cloud. It's wherever Microsoft has their data centers. Keep it in the cloud. All right, so we've collected our data. We've got it in the cloud. We're ready to start analyzing it. Analyzing your data is where the real work happens. And you must ask that most Lutheran of questions. What does this mean? That's what we're going to ask of our data. What does all this mean?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Analysis. So one of the things of inviting information, like, for example, we've done this new cycle of Bible studies and anyway, we wanted to know a direction going forward. We had what kind of Bible studies would you be interested in? We had some options and then an open-ended question, which was up. And then we had 15 of our almost 300 people participate. So, okay, we can work on that, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you get more participation without getting
That's a great question.
strong army or
And I will confess that we are still struggling with that at Campus Lutheran. So we use CCB for our church management system, Church Community Builder. Everybody know what that is, or Planning Center. There are some others out there, Church 360. But again, I recommend that you use a church management system because it's great at integrating data. But what I wanted to, I guess what I want to say is that I have a bunch of people who swear they can't use CCB, the forms on CCB. And I'm like, well, if you can Facebook, I see you posting on Facebook all the time, I'm sure you can fill out a form on CCB. Be that as it may, that's one of the reasons we have low participation. But the other thing we struggle with is that people just do not sign up for anything. Not only do they not fill out our surveys, but we're like, we need volunteers to work the movie night in the park. Who's willing to help us? Crickets, nothing. And I have to walk up, and we wind up having to walk up to people and say, will you please help me with movie night in the park? And, so it's a constant struggle. I wish I had the answer. I don't. I'm sorry. But I wonder if any of these people might have a suggestion or an answer.
From a data perspective, Barna put out a report that 98% of people open text and only 20% of people open emails. So when you're trying to gather your data or inquire of your congregation, the antiquated way is to keep sending out emails that you have. They're not going to, most of them, if they don't go to spam, won't answer it. But
Right.
if you get them on a text, they'll always, almost always, open it. And it's still point of contact, Physical touch, physical ask is still one of the greatest.
Yeah. So I participate in a group with Deb called Lutheran Communicators, and we talk about that a lot. And one of the things that I know another member of Lutheran Communicators actually suggested, check out the program that lets you interact with people via text. And I just activated my free trial on that, and we're going to give it a whirl and see if that helps. So, these things, some of them get a little pricey. But again, if you're prioritizing contact and data gathering, maybe you can justify some of the expense. Anything else?
no, that's
Like I said, I wish I had the answer, but I'm struggling with that too.
What was the program that they recommended?
there's a few.
The guy out of Chicago,
Text in church.
it wasn't either of those.
Would have grown, but I think that's not great.
My email is going to be on the last slide. If you email me and ask me, I will tell you. I will go back and look it up, and I will be happy to tell you. Now you have to stay till the last slide. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about predictions, suppositions, preconceived notions, gut level feelings, personal constructs. This is Thomas Jefferson. He was our nation's first Secretary of State. He served as Vice President of the United States under John Adams and went on to be elected the third President of the United States. This is one of my favorite quotes of his. Now, of course, he didn't really say this, but it is a great reminder that when analyzing data, we have to set aside our own, we don't want to foist our constructs onto the data. We had one event that we don't have at Campus Lutheran anymore, and I don't want to disparage it, so I won't say what it is, but the perception was that this was a very well-liked and well-attended event, and in reality, it wasn't. In reality, the same 20 to 25 people kept coming to this event every year, and it really didn't work with our mission and vision, and it was a financial drain. And so we finally said, we can't do this event anymore. We're going to take those resources and we're going to drive our, something that better fits our mission and vision. So, and believe it or not, every one of you in this room has some preconceived notions that will skew the data in your head. And you have to make yourself get rid of that. And there's ways to do that. We have ways to make sure that we're not foisting our own constructs onto the data. So keeping in mind the questions our data can answer, we'll start analyzing now. We're going to separate our data into buckets. That's why we had the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, whatever. Sometimes you only have 2 buckets, sometimes you have 15 buckets. How many is right? I don't know. Your mileage may vary. It depends on the question you're asking and the data you're trying to get. But separate your data into buckets. And then decide whether you're either going to eliminate or explain the outliers. Why is this weird? Oh, yeah, our attendance was over 200 on Pentecost Sunday because it was confirmation and it was graduation recognition, and so we had a lot of out-of-town families come in. So, oh yeah, that makes sense. So it helps with 2 things. The explaining the outliers helps with understanding the deviation, why it happened, and it helps us prepare for the next time when we would expect those weird circumstances. So how many or how much? Those are the quantifiers. How is this organized? Is it men and women? Is it families with small children? Is it college students? Is it retired people? Is it people who live within a 5-mile radius of our campus? We'll start to see trends as we answer these questions. We'll start to see the data will help formulate the answers to our questions, especially what do we do next? So here's what...
If you go back a slide, it's interesting. I looked at the ones on the left, and I saw more circles and more squares. And I looked at the right. It's like, wait, there's not 4 triangles in there. There's that skewed mindset.
Right, exactly.
Looking at the facts, and I'm saying, I looked at the picture. I saw all the people who responded, but I didn't really look at the analysis of it.
Exactly. And sometimes the data states things that are obvious. Oh yeah, I knew it was going to say that. Okay, cool. I believe you. You did know it was going to say that. Sometimes the data surprises us. It is not the job. This is, if you take nothing else away from this, take this. It is not the job of the people analyzing and reporting on the data to draw any conclusions from the data. It is the job of the leaders and the decision makers to utilize the information provided by the data analysts to help make informed decisions, free of bias and preconceived notions. Now, in smaller organizations, it is possible that the data gatherer is also the decision maker. That's cool. You have to separate your roles, though, and you have to delineate between them. We have to delineate between data analysts and the decision makers. Data analysts provide the answers that the data gives, but it's up to the organizational leadership to decide what to do as a result of getting those answers. So in this case, we decided to stop subscribing to our text-to-give platform because almost nobody participated in that. However, half of our contributions come in electronically over the web. So we invested more in the infrastructure for online giving on the web, and we repurposed those resources that we were using for the text-to-give. As the data analyst, though, I didn't make that call. The church council made that decision. Here's another example, VBS. People in our congregation like to see the professionally designed advertisement for our church's VBS in door mail. Door mail is, you know, the package of little coupons that comes in the mailbox. It's been a source of pride at our congregation for quite some time. But we started asking, how did you hear about us? And guess what? No one identified door mail as how they heard about us. So you know what that really was? Our congregation likes to see Campus Lutheran Church on a piece of paper that comes in the mail. Surprisingly, even when provided with that data, that our campaign had zero effectiveness, seeing that doormail advertisement was important. It was important enough to some of the congregation members that when the communications team lead, that's yours truly, suggested that we stop funding the doormail campaign, he was nearly crucified by a contingent of the church. Several people in that contingent decided that even though it was not effectively bringing in people, they still wanted to see the doormail, and they funded the doormail campaign, and will be doing so again this summer. But we are not spending our church resources on it because it's not effective. So again, preconceived notions and biases, that's what's keeping us spending the money on the doormail campaign every year. We're not looking at the data. And that does happen sometime. We are flawed, sinful human beings in a flawed, sinful world, and sometimes we will not do what we're supposed to do. We discovered also that almost all of our attendees at VBS were not first-time attenders of our VBS. We have concluded by looking at that data that VBS is not currently an effective outreach tool. Now, that begs some other questions. We're not going to stop VBS. I mean, you can't be Lutheran and not have a VBS, right? I mean, even if it's a money drain, that's one of the things you got to do. So, but our question is, are we kidding ourselves by saying this is an outreach event? Or the better question might be, how do we turn this and transform it into an outreach event? Right now, it's the same people. They're not all connected to our church, but they all know that we offer a week of VBS at the same week every summer, and they keep coming back. It's good. It's good that we do that, but I'm not sure it's the outreach tool that we want to tell ourselves it is. One more example here. What we learned from our data at Campus Lutheran Church, our Meet Me at the Manger event. Here you can see a couple pictures of it online. We bring in hundreds of nativity scenes that our members have, and we put them on display, and we invite the community to see them. We have a very well-connected retired realtor who knows everybody in town, and therefore she gets on the morning drive time radio shows, and she gets on a local community TV events program, and she publicizes the heck out of this, and we get all kinds of people that are not connected to our church. We had no idea until this year when we started collecting data this past year in 2021 that 3/4 of the people coming to this have no connection to our church. That sounds like an amazing outreach opportunity if we can gather the data. So
Why don't she just promote VBS?
that'd be great. Yeah, there you go. I need to get her to promote VBS for us too. So attendance data in this case, the little low-tech clickers that count people, also showed us that the hours we thought were going to be popular for this event were not. And so we're adjusting, in the next iteration, we'll be adjusting the hours to make it available to when the people want to come and see it. So again, here the data is allowing us to improve on the things we're doing well, and it lets us eliminate the things that we aren't doing well. So the conclusion here is discover what your data can tell you. Share your findings and make boldly make decisions like no one has made before. So, what questions, comments, thoughts do you all have? Because this is where we've done the overview here. We do have 30 minutes left. I'm not going to ask any, but you don't have to stay any longer. But if you have questions, comments, thoughts, things you want to share, let me know. Let's benefit from the wisdom of each other's experience.
I'm sharing a little bit. One of the biggest statistical type things that I deal with right now is, of course, YouTube views or whatever. And from the very beginning, I heard, pick one metric and just stick with it. And so when I offer that information to the staff, I really only offer 4 different things. And at first, it was peak concurrent viewers and unique views and the number of chats. Not number of people chatting, but the number, just so you can gauge activity.
Right.
which of course is mostly me, but that's okay. And one of the elders approached me, he goes, do we know who's chatting? I'm like, maybe, it depends on their username, because that's all I have. And he goes, huh. But then I started going back and looking, and even if they had a weird username, hey, from the such and other family, hey, from the
Mhm.
I was like, I'm curious. So I started kind of, in Airtable, I linked it, and so I just kind of quickly plop in whoever happened to say hi, and I don't know that it's necessarily in like attendance, because we just
Mhm.
use peak views.
Sure.
Or peak current views. But it was just fascinating to see, we have a very consistent church body that worships with us online, and just that connection of, we can actually connect names to numbers just a little bit,
Mhm.
and flesh out just a little bit more of, it's not just numbers.
So one of the things go ahead, I'm sorry. There's some of these things. One of the things we use at Campus Lutheran that we made the decision to do is the Church Online platform. Has anybody heard of that? It's a free service, but we also use Vimeo instead of YouTube, and Deb is well aware that I highly recommend your own paid video channel. We use Vimeo. There's others available too. But like Grandma always said, you get what you pay for, and YouTube is a free platform. YouTube is not there to help you promote your church service. YouTube is there to get eyeballs to serve up their advertisements. That's what it's about. And so there's a conflict of interest there. But if you don't have it in your budget to have a paid video platform account, then YouTube is what you do. I would pick YouTube over Facebook any day for that. But the Church Online platform, the reason I mention that, A, it's free. You can tie it to either YouTube or Vimeo or any other any other video platform. And what's cool about that is that it does give them an opportunity to sign in. It gives them an opportunity to chat with each other, as well as there's a whole interface. It's kind of like you've got the video and most of the screen, but then you have a column that you can chat in also. And I get great data from that. I get all of the things that you talked about, but then I also get how many people chatted and how many other people didn't chat. We look at unique viewers for longer than 10 seconds, but we're quickly discovering that our audience is a lot larger than we thought it was. We thought that originally, when we first started this, we thought that we had about 50 followers online, and we found out it's closer to 300. So, and that's part of that, I think, is because we're a campus ministry. We have a lot of alumni and friends who have left the area that are tuning in, not every Sunday, but sometimes, they're feeling nostalgic or they want to worship with us, and that's what they do. So it's pretty cool. Church Online platform, I'll plug that. Because it's free. It's free, and it seems like a good program. It crashed on us once during COVID, but when COVID was first, when the lockdowns and everything first started. But it's been really reliable lately. Now, it's still not going to take care of any of the YouTube crashes that happen, but one of the things I think is that if we could set up a co-op maybe for smaller churches or churches with smaller budgets to share a Vimeo account, then the cost to entry would be a lot lower than it is if you got your own. So that's one thought. If your organization is interested in that, send me an email, because I'd love to talk with you about that.
Did you suggest Lutheran churches share?
I did. Shared ministry.
Is that on recording?
It is. Bill Geist did a great presentation yesterday on shared ministry in the Lutheran Church. It does exist. It is happening. And actually, we have a voters meeting on Sunday to discuss entering into a shared ministry with a church that could use the help.
Yeah, in our congregation, we've been introducing right now the church platform for video. So right now we have a choice between Facebook or the platform. I like the platform better, and I also don't like giving Facebook anything. So
right.
I'm a lot happier that we have a new platform.
like YouTube, Facebook is also, their primary interest is in serving up advertisements to the people who tune into your content. So, yes, sir.
I just want to bring out another option. And
Sure.
It's not something. It's not free on the surface. It's not something that everybody. I work with our National Lutheran Education Association.
Right.
And in the beginning of COVID, we were already moving toward a way of having a better way to have our videos available without using YouTube and even Vimeo. We ended up purchasing a platform. And by that, I don't mean we own all the background. There's a company in Canada, and there are a number of those out there. But we pay a monthly fee, but every bit of that platform is ours.
Right.
There is no outside advertising requirements of any kind. We build it. We have unlimited space for unlimited. It has indexing. It has all of the abilities to do everything we want, including advertising, which is, I call it internal advertising, ways that we can help support it if we choose. The greatest thing about it is to help us to extend this. We are collaborating with other education agencies who can use space on that platform with the same ideas with whom we share. We have a common index, so when the Center for Urban Education Ministry has all their things branded for them, all of their videos are put into the same index as the rest of ours, so when people come in and can find it. And then we also created an online virtual exhibit hall. So
That is awesome.
So this is a concept that I'm just saying we've explored now and have really enjoyed using it, especially the unlimited part, and in collaborating it cuts down the expense.
Yeah.
I would think this would be something that would be really helpful.
I think you're right. I would like to.
Something like that. I'm not suggesting.
Yeah.
others would
No,
do
I'd
that,
like to talk
but
with you more about
the idea
that sometime.
That can be done with a company where you own it
Right.
and you have no outside obligations. It's really kind of neat to work with them.
Cool. Cool. Thanks. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming today, and I appreciate your time, and I hope that you've gotten something out of this that you can take back and implement in your organizations. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mickey.
Sorry, I couldn't be in on the first part of that.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, we met before. I think I've seen.
I think so,
some
yeah.
things that you've done.
Cool.
Yeah, it's LEA Connects.
Okay.
You just go online and just put that in. Yeah, it's been fun because we have built this out now in new ways, and it allows us to be able to have all the back end access, all the analytics and everything. It's really
Cool.
kind of nice to have that control.
Yeah. I might reach out to you and
Oh,
get
sure,
some more
sure,
information
sure.
on it, because I do want to, thanks, I appreciate that. I want to, my goal is more of a loftier one. I'd like to get a platform like that and share it with all of the churches, because I think ultimately more control,
Yeah.
and I think you can save money too,
Well,
when you scale it.
We didn't go out and pursue lots of companies. I had a relationship already with this company. It's, I forget what the original name was, but Association TV, based up in Canada. And I knew this guy for a couple of years, and when we got to the first few months of COVID, we hightailed it to get this done and just kind of swallowed hard, because it's,
Yeah.
a couple $1,000s a month
Yeah.
to maintain this. But everything is there, and now we're starting to think creatively about how to use it. That would be one source you could check out, and there
Yeah.
are other places. But
Yeah.
the great thing with them too is they understand our kind of organization and the training, and they help us produce videos. They have a conceptual framework that makes
Cool.
a lot of sense to us, and the monetization. They know that organizations like us need to find
Right.
ways to support it. And we're not even scratching the surface of the potential, the kinds of things they had. So I
Cool.
just like the concept behind it. So I'd be happy to talk with you.
Yeah, I would. I'll reach out next week.
Okay.
If that's all right. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
Yeah, do that. In fact, here, let me write my cell phone number, because I'm on the road again next week, and it's a lot easier to catch me on my
Sure.
cell. I'll just put that.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
good presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our person who does this kind of thing is having a really tough time installing Church Community Builder.
I don't doubt it. It was,
Do you have any advice for?
well, I'm choosing my words carefully. I loved Church Community Builder until they were purchased by PushPay. I have found that if we weren't so far down the CCB road right now, I'd switch to something else. But I will say this, still, and this is the reason I chose CCB, well, I didn't choose it, but the reason our church chose it was from a data perspective,
But it's something that.
hands down, CCB is the best platform. Not so much from an operations or user experience perspective. It's terrible. Well, it's not terrible anymore, but it's still bad. And eventually, the other thing that CCB has, they have an API so that you can actually.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. You can actually build your own interface to CCB if you want. That's a lot of work, though. That's probably what we'll end up doing eventually, but that's still a couple years down the road.
Yeah, but they had you.
Yeah, but only for about another year. I'm moving to Alabama.
Well, hey, thanks very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if your person wants to give me a call and talk about stuff, I'm happy to do that. I do not have a card, but